bit like She-Ra and the Princess of Power after it, the fact that everything was going to be all right in the end was kind of given away in the theme song. Will always save the day, indeed. Steven Universe. So it had been my intention to do reviews for season 3, then season 4, then season 5. Thing is, my kiddo, who I've been watching these with, has been insisting on a binge style on this, and we kept shifting from one season into the next so quickly that like it all started to bleed together for me. And so after we finished season 4, and I was like, okay, I need to like think back to what season 3 was and shoot a review on that. And then she was like, can we keep watching? I was like, screw it. I'm going to have to do a review just of seasons 3, 4, and 5. That's what I'm going to have to do, because she won't wait. She's not going to wait for me. And actually, the reason I'm shooting this when I am is because later today, she wants to watch the movie. So, yeah, she's pretty hooked. And I can see why. It's a really neat, cool, fun, usually, I'll get to this, but usually pretty emotionally intelligent little show. And I'm going to be jumping all over the place with this on all 3 of these seasons, because as I said, it is all bled together in my head. So some things that people think I should talk about, I will probably forget. And who knows? But anyways, this is a rambling review. This is what we do here. So in any case, Garnet, still my favorite. Peridot, still my kid's favorite. She now has a sticker on her laptop of Peridot going, "You Claude!" So I've been just enjoying this. Let me get my complaints out of the way. Lars was kind of insufferable for longer than I think he should have been. Like, I appreciate in season 5 where they went with him, and the whole basically space pirate thing does suit him well and works out, but like, he wasn't even vaguely getting better, and like how much people like Steven, especially Sadie, put up with him. And again, like, I understand there's a certain accuracy to that where you know, for whatever reason, you care or are committed to a kind of toxic person, and that you hang around and like hope for them to be something other than what they have demonstrated themselves to be for longer than you should. But given that that isn't what ends up happening with him, it feels more like the show is saying, stick around with someone who takes you for granted and doesn't really pay proper attention to your feelings until they get better, and maybe they will eventually. I'm like, I didn't like how long it took him to even start getting better. Like, I wish they could have at least started nudging him that way. But by the end, they did at least do something nice with him. Ronaldo can go to hell. Ronaldo is the absolute worst. Every time he was on screen, I groaned. I hate him. I find him insufferable as a character. I do not enjoy his presence at all. And the kinds of things he was frequently being used to parody or comment on was all low-hanging fruit, cheap shot, lazy nonsense. Hated him. Hate Ronaldo. I never, ever, 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 ever want to see him again. Go to hell, Ronaldo. That having been said, pretty much everything else is various degrees of fun or interesting. Bismuth was a cool character. I didn't really know much about Bismuth stones. I looked them up after she showed up. I was like, oh, dang, those are really, really cool. I liked what they did with Lapis and sort of the effort and the time that it takes for her to, you know, get over her own fear and come to terms with what she is afraid of, and is it worth facing that fear or not. I enjoyed that. Oh, God, the wedding between Ruby and Sapphire was, loved that. Loved that so much. Another weird thing about season 5 specifically. Once Steven got back from Homeworld and Lars was left there were like 3 or 4 filler episodes where like everything was kind of treated almost as normal, or at least there was no acknowledgement of the fact that Lars was in space. Like, Steven gets back and gets hung up on Mayor Dewey's campaign, and then like Dewey shows up again after that. Like, what? okay, I get that Steven's thing is kind of that he cares too much about literally everybody, but like this guy was demonstrably bad at his job. He was a bad mayor. He was the stereotypical cartoon bad mayor. Why? Why? Why is the show devoting so much time to him? Like, I get why Steven as a character is, because he can't help himself, but like, no. And like, there's a dude in space, and like, between like, there's that, and there's a couple more. Like, they go on vacation after that. I mean, I'm like, it would help if somebody somewhere was like, I'm going to try and figure out how we get back Lars. You guys go on vacation. But like, there was no acknowledgement. It was like, we assume he's fine. Whatever. It was weird. For a show that has up to that point been really aware and conscious of keeping track of the emotional fallout of things, that was weird. That was really weird. That threw me off. It like, I was completely unable to engage in those episodes because I'm like, but there's a dude in space and you don't know that he's okay. Yeah, that was weird. Actually, most of my hiccups are kind of fifth season. So, big spoiler. I'm already talking spoilers, but big spoiler here. And this was something I already knew. The whole thing with rose quartz actually being pink diamond, I'm not in love with. Now, it is a case of what they ultimately do with that after the reveal is pretty good and pretty well done. But, all right, here's the thing. That reveal, in and of itself, has very little impact on Steven, which is weird to me. Like, it has, I think, appropriate impact on, say, Ruby and Sapphire, and a little bit on Amethyst. But Steven is okay with it to a degree that made me think, you know, this was a lot more interesting watching Steven grapple with the idea that his mom actually did shatter a diamond. And I think that's the thing. Emotionally, especially for Steven in specific, the cover story was more interesting than the twist and the revealed story. I thought it was a more interesting story, especially for someone who always insists everything will be fine, like Steven. And again, I get that's his personality, but like, there is such a thing as toxic positivity, and Steven comes dangerously close to that on occasion. The narrative just bends in such a way to make him be right. So with this thing with his mom in particular, it was really interesting watching somebody like him who insists there's always a way to do it without people getting hurt, that there's always going to be a way to win, and we can always have it so people aren't sad or miserable as a result of this, if not now, then later on. To watch him grapple with the idea that his mother, who he never knew, but he has this very idealized image of, and everyone around him projects this idealized image to him, to find out that she did something that he fundamentally feels is wrong and abhorrent, in which Rose herself, as far as he could tell, was actually not okay with, but she did it anyway. Watching him grapple with that for multiple episodes back in season 4, I think, was very interesting and a proper challenge to him as a character and a challenge to the audience. To then have it be, oh no, don't worry, she never shattered anybody, removes the emotional complexity of Steven in particular and of the world in general. It was like the one thing that was slapping Steven in the face with the idea that no, you can't always just talk people down. You can't always make friends with the people who are trying to hurt you. Sometimes you have to do the thing that you know is wrong, but it becomes necessary. Now, that's not to say that real life application would be kill the people who are toxic in your life, but like, I will always be someone to say, like, you are within your rights to cut toxic people out of your life. I don't care who they are. whoever they are, if they are that damaging to you and you've tried and it's not getting better, you have a right to cut them out. So the idea of this being a show where the one instance where something that drastic had to be done to remove something dangerous, which is something that Steven has been saying, we don't ever have to do that. And it's like, no, there are times. And grappling with that properly, that's terrible, that's horrible. But yeah, sometimes to then be like, oh, no, don't worry about it. It was all fake. Actually, everything is fine and everyone's okay and everyone's friends. As somebody who has been encouraged at points in my life to reconnect or forgive people who I can't and I won't, and to be shamed for that and to be told I'm a bad person because I won't reach out to someone who actively harmed me and never, ever felt bad about doing so. No, I kind of have an issue with a show that by the time it's done does seem to be actively saying there's always a way for everyone to get along. Because no, there isn't. And you know what? You could say to me, well, it's a kid's show. It's going for a simpler answer. And I would say, I don't buy that here because it is dealing with emotional complexities. And it dealt with the emotional complexities of this specific thing until a twist took that away. And I know I said it was good. And I know I spent a while complaining about this, but this really does bother me. That having been said, as I mentioned earlier, once that twist is done, the way that things pan out story-wise with Yellow Diamond, Blue Diamond, and eventually White Diamond, and the way that they sort of springboard off the idea that they don't just view Steven as Rose Quartz, but they now view him as Pink Diamond, that was, if that's the story you're going to tell, they told it well. I question whether or not that is the story that should have been getting told in terms of what was sacrificed in order to tell it. But if that is the story you're going to do, they did it very, very well. And there was actually, the final episode, there was a brilliant bit of just an animation thing. So, like most TV animation on a TV budget, the animation is fine, but not the smoothest thing in the world. Because, there's 24 frames of, there's 24 frames in a second in your standard film, whether it be animated or anything else. 24 frames per second. Most TV animation, they are doing an image every 2 to 3, or if you're going really low budget, every 4 even sometimes, frames. So that it's not the smoothest thing, and it kind of, it's TV. But it's not Disney film level animation where they are doing an image for every single frame, 24 images per second, which gives you that wonderfully smooth motion. And there's a bit in this when Steven kind of reunites with his own essence and his own gem, where the animation went to that full style. Every frame had an image, and it became so gloriously smooth. And it was a really beautiful way to emphasize the importance of that moment. I love things like that. I love when these mediums can do something with the very nature of the visualization that they're doing to tell the story, to bring emphasis. It's one of the things that I think people now forget about Tron Legacy, which is not a good movie, and it's a weird one to bring up, but let me get there. When you saw it in the theater, they did a really cool thing, if you saw it in 3D, where the opening and closing segments that were set in the real world weren't in 3D, but it went to 3D when he entered the grid. And once we were in the computer-generated world, that was using some inherent things about the medium to actually enhance the story and to bring emphasis. And I feel like they did a similar thing with the animation in that moment. That was great. I'm trying to think what else I want to particularly highlight. Oh, I haven't really talked too much about Stevani, and I should. I love the little touches Stevani had to shave, which was funny because at the time it happened, we hadn't even seen that Steven had to shave yet, but Stevani did. That was kind of nice. And the fusions in general, I've come to really appreciate sort of how those work and the way they represent relationships. I know I said in my review of season 1 that they represent sex, which was an oversimplification, and I think partially is kind of how we watched the fusion of Garnet and Amethyst. Like, that was incredibly sexually based, but that had more to do with the people involved. Those two characters, yeah, their kind of connection was going to be more leaning that way. Whereas the way that other fusions happen and the nature of those connections are not as inherently sexual. So it has more to do with the people involved in the relationship that they build is reflected in the way the fusion happens at all, and then the kind of person that they become as a result of that. Like, the fusions really kind of is the most fascinating aspect of this. The idea of it, seeing it happen, and sort of picking apart and parsing and thinking about what it means that these two people create this. And I love the idea that, like, when the same kind of gem fuse together, they're just a bigger version of the same thing, sort of working as an undercurrent of the idea of, you need somebody that isn't exactly like you if you're going to create something new, because otherwise you're just more. And, the importance of building a diversity of relationships are kind of embodied in that. That's really cool. There's way too many, like, little touches that are cool and nifty, like little background storytelling details, like realizing that because Lars was saved by turning pink and now his hair is a portal, that means that at some point Rose must have saved Lion in a similar fashion. That was a cool thing to realize. I had called out in Rose's thing in the desert, like where she dumped all her junk. Like, when I first saw those pink pillows, I'm like, those look like knees. And I was right. So that was fun. The white diamond is very intimidating. That was well done. And it's not easy to take what appears to be a almost pure evil villain and convincingly talk them down. But the show did it because it also emphasized that it's not just words. It takes actions. It takes, in some cases with some of these people, literally getting in their heads. Not to manipulate their minds, but like to reach them on something deeper than words can, in a way that fantastical and fiction and animation narratives allow you to do that wouldn't work in live action or something more grounded and realistic. This show embraces its weirdness in a way that really works for it, and I definitely enjoyed. I know I have my issues mostly with season 5, but once it got into the last leg of things with the stuff on Homeworld, it's well done. So there are some hiccups, I have some issues, some questions, but I get why the show is as beloved as it is. And I'm going to be really curious to see what the movie and then what Steven Universe future is like. And yeah, Steven Universe seasons 3 through 5. Again, I'm sure I skipped over so much stuff, but what can I say? My kid wouldn't slow down. What do you think about these seasons? What do you think about the show overall? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon is how I'm able to afford to do this for a living and get things like HBO Max, which is what I watch Steven Universe on, so that I am able to watch it with my kid and then talk to you folks about it. So any assistance you can give there, help keep this whole thing going. Even if you can't, like, share, and subscribe, help me out, but don't worry about it too much. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. It's the end credits. Means I gotta shout out some patrons. This month, it is Turok, Oliver B., Linda Walters, TT, Robin Powell, Frenobulax, The Poodle, Eidolon, Tracy Scrabbit, Dharma Michael Doyle, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Casperl, Adam Lefty Taylor, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Bookworm. Thanks so much for your support.